Earlier, Monocle's news editor Tom Edwards spoke to Jeremy Hildreth, international branding and identity expert. Tom started with a fundamental question. What is the best form of advertising?
Well, I'm a branding guy, and for me, the best advertising isn't advertising. Actually, recently I did a project with Nike, which I can't talk too much about because Nike has more lawyers than I do on staff. But one of the things I learned while working with them was a phrase that stuck in my mind, which is that the best advertising isn't advertising, which seems strange coming from them, but there it is. I'll give an example of a non-advertising form of advertising that I think would have been great. My colleague J.T. Singh used to live in Seoul, Korea. Now, the lifestyle in Seoul is known for being super fast-paced. They even have a word for it. I think it's buli or something like that. And like most cities, Seoul has a metro system with escalators. So JT had the idea that Seoul should look around the world and find out how fast the escalators are in other cities of the world and choose the fastest one, then tune theirs just a tiny bit faster than all of the other escalators in the world, and then go out, let people catch on to the fact that Seoul's escalators are the fastest in the world and equate that to the pace of life that they want you to experience while you're there. And I thought that was a brilliant idea. That's an example of the best advertising isn't advertising. With the rise of social media, it's these things that turn heads and change minds.
Tourism ads aren't limited to skylines and beach vistas. They range from the utterly simple, think I Heart New York, to ones that attempt to convey quite complex images of a city. To review a few recent urban adverts, we invited into studio Jeremy Hildreth, a place branding expert based here in London.
First of all, what I tell clients is that communications, namely advertising, is not a particularly strong tool for building a brand. If you're talking about a brand as a reputation, how much can you talk somebody into believing something is true about you? I brought a magazine in from 1969, The Atlantic, from the United States, which has, as it happens, Hemingway on the cover. Now, Hemingway, one of his famous quotes is that writing is easy until you think about the reader. It's equally true with advertising. It's very easy to write an ad that says what you want it to say. Much harder to create an ad that says something that I want to hear in the audience. And I think that somehow the knack has been lost by advertising agencies for marketing places. I hardly see ads anywhere that I like that make me want to go to a place. There's an adage that no good joke survives a committee of 6. And it's not only jokes, it's anything with a sharp edge. I mean, committees are designed to take the edges off of things, and most of these ads end up being approved by a committee. And so it's very hard to get anything truly creative through. You have to keep context in mind. I've worked for Swedish Lapland, which is not a city. In fact, it's the opposite of a city. It's a very open, quiet place, and they were selling how open and quiet they were. And when we wrote ads for the London Underground, we understood that someone is going to see this ad while standing on the platform waiting for the train. So you write for a very specific context, and it's hard to judge an ad outside of that context. In this case, we used the headline, "Stand back, no train approaching," to jar with the London Underground signs say "Stand back, train approaching." So the point was that you could get away from the hustle and bustle, and there was a kind of positioning to it.
I'm also struck often on the subway, for example, that it's actually the ad that has several hundred words on it that you can see people shuffling along trying to read because they're waiting for 4 or 5 minutes before their train comes in. And there's something captivating about seeing a large amount of print actually on the subway rather than just the 2 or 3 kind of words punching you in the face.
Yeah. So be like Hemingway and think about the reader. Think about the audience and the specific context that he's in and characterize the place, the city, and make it interesting. Seduce me. I want to be seduced. The worst tourism ad I've ever seen, and sorry, it's not for a city, but the point holds, was for Kyrgyzstan, which was in an airline seatback magazine, and it said, "Visit Kyrgyzstan, land of Santa Claus." And I'd heard of Kyrgyzstan before, and I've heard of Santa Claus, but never the two in the same sentence. And I did some research, and I worked out that what this was, where this came from, was some Swedish logistics consultancy had done some research and worked out that Santa Claus, if he wanted the optimum access to the world's chimneys on Christmas, should base himself in Kyrgyzstan. And the tourist board picked that up and turned that in. I mean, they completely missed the context, missed the whole thing, dropped the context, So remember the context is the main thing, and teach me something or make me feel something.
Well, brilliant. Jeremy Hildreth, a regular here now on The Urbanist. Thank you very much for coming in and joining us today.
Ecuador is probably the victim of the biggest sort of provenance crime ever, in that the Panama hat is actually of Ecuadorian origin. If you ever buy a Panama hat and it doesn't say made in Ecuador, you've been cheated. I think it makes Burma look too much like Thailand for no good reason. I mean, Burma, Rudyard Kipling said about Burma, this is Burma, it will be unlike any country you've ever seen before. I first visited in 2002. I was one of the first Westerners to retrace the old Burma Road from Mandalay up to Kunming, China, and it's just now finally opening up to the rest of the world. And so it's an extraordinary opportunity to explore a super unique place, and they've just made it look like Thailand. It's a waste. So look, they're new at this.
I wonder, was it a Thai creative agency on it or something?
Could have been.
As somebody who does know Burma well, though, what would you be stressing if you were running a tourist campaign for it?
I would make the ads look like mini documentaries. I would be showing people, teaching people, telling the narrative. I wouldn't focus so much on the pictures. I mean, there's plenty of room for pretty pictures, but the stories and the history and the opportunity to see a place before it becomes over, before the Hilton is built there is a big opportunity.
It's time now to talk advertising with our Monocle regular and branding consultant, Jeremy Hildreth. Jeremy was joined by our associate business editor, Adrian Craddock, to talk through 3 different ad campaigns, 2 of which are hoaxes. Though, as Jeremy tells us, a parody ad often works better than one that plays it straight.
So you've worked on a lot of nation branding and a lot of place branding. If a nation that you were working for, put forward the idea of doing one of these parody ads, would that make you nervous, or, I mean, what do you think is a great idea? Do you think there's things that you need to keep in mind to do this successfully?
My predisposition is go for it, because I think the point of an ad is to bring people to the town. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to move product, as it were. In this case, the place is the product. So you want bums on seats. You want, that kind of a thing. And where people get hung up is they think, oh, well, it might damage the reputation. But I'm thinking you're not really trying. When people get there, they'll learn about you. The people who don't bother to get on the plane, forget about them. You're trying to move product. You're trying to get visitors. So do something that gets visitors. Worry about the reputation another time.
That's interesting. So you think that as long as, people are coming, as long as it sticks in people's minds, it doesn't matter if you're projecting, this super shiny positive image. The most important thing is just getting people to come to your place.
Advertising is a lousy way for a place to talk about itself as a super shiny, nice place, because it's not credible for that. So if you're a place, don't use your own advertising as a way of building your reputation, because it's not an effective tool for that.
Joining us here in the studio is Monocle regular Jeremy Hildreth. He is founder of place-related branding agency Thrilling Cities, based in London and Shanghai, no less. Jeremy, welcome.
Thank you.
Essentially, coming up with the slogan to sum a place up is basically impossible.
It seems to be, yeah. I mean, I think there's 3 ways to go, perhaps. You can be expressive, like Australia, where the bloody hell are you? Or oblique but catchy.
Added bloody hell to that now.
They used to, yeah. Or you can be oblique but catchy, like any decent doctor would prescribe Norway. Or you can be wry and factual, like one that I wrote for Visit London. Visit London, it rains more in Rome.
A lot of the ones highlighted in this article are just gibberish. I mean, there's things like Anguilla, feeling is believing. I mean, that makes as much sense as saying believing is feeling. A lot of these just sort of seem to be just buzzwords arranged in a more or less meaningless order.
That's right. They're clearly written by committees with one person changing one word and someone else weighing in at the last minute.
When you've only got 3 or 4 words, doesn't...
English is their second language.
I like what they've done with the Slovenia one, where they've capitalised the love in Slovenia. So it's just like, I feel Slovenia. You see...
I guess you've got to pronounce it in a certain way.
Yeah, you see what they've done there.
Are we being too harsh on these, Jeremy?
Yes and no. I mean, no, because they deserve that kind of criticism. Yes, because it's like the job of President of the United States. I think it's just impossible to do. And some of them make a little more sense when you know the place. Like, I always thought Malaysia, Truly Asia was quite a naff statement, but I visited Malaysia for the first time a couple of weeks ago.
And you realised
when you're
everything
there, you
rhymes.
kind of go, oh, right, it kind of makes sense because it has this essence of Asia because of the diversity of people from sort of everywhere in Asia. It's kind of representative, and so the slogan makes more sense when you're there. And that's one of the problems with creating these slogans is it makes sense to the people there, but not to foreigners or
so
vice versa.
Is that the difficulty, that you're obviously writing a slogan about a place that you know something about, but having to put yourself into the heads of people who've got no idea about it and are trying to choose their holiday from more than 200 places around the world they could go?
Correct. I think if you've got to do advertising, and I generally advise my clients to find other more imaginative ways to raise their profile than running ads. But if you've got to do ads, then you've really got to be creative almost to the point of being outlandish these days, I'm afraid.
Okay. Jeremy, always good to have you here. Jeremy Hildreth is founder of place-related branding agency Thrilling Cities based in London and Shanghai.